This afternoon, it's the 6th of August, 2010, and we're sitting in the room of Mr. Orville Berger at the Blue Valley Nursing Home in Blue Rapids. Orville is 97 years old, and the reason we're interviewing him is because at age 97, he knows things that we don't know. He's a veteran of World War II, and maybe we'll start with some questions about that.
I was thinking you were 27 when you enrolled, or were you drafted?
I was drafted, and the one book tells the date there, February or March. I can't tell you now, but anyway, it's the date.
In 1942.
Yeah, 42.
Yeah.
And
Did you live around Waterville at the time?
well, I was born and raised east of Barnes, 3 miles. It's 1914, the 22nd of June, at 7 o'clock in the morning. And of course, I had no doctor, just a godmother, and I don't know who that is. But anyway, I went on till I got to be 65. Then I had to prove I was born.
And did you have trouble?
No, I used a draft, the discharge from the Army papers.
Uh-huh.
Well, anything you could do then, it would work.
Was there anybody else from over there in that area that was went in the same time you did?
Well, the one I went in, there was around 100 went out of Washington County. Nobody knew what was going on, cared less.
Didn't care?
Well, some of them was happy-go-lucky, and some of them was shaky. And of course,
But you didn't have like a best friend or somebody that you knew well that went in with you?
well, there was around 10 or 15 people that I knew from Mars that went in.
Any of them end up in the 90th with you?
Yes and no. There's one boy, Downard, Lawrence Downard. He is born and raised, graduated from Barnes High School, but he worked at Lincoln. And here when he got drafted, he wound up at the service company. I was in headquarters. Well, we got acquainted right away. Then there was a Hoot Vedar south of Barnes that he was made and busted more times than any soldier in the American Army. He was a genius cat skinner. And TD-14s is what our cats were.
That's heavy equipment.
Yeah, heavy equipment. Well, not the real heavy, but
Yeah.
caterpillars are high.
Right.
Anyway, go along. He had to patronize this Hoot Vedar. When you got Germany, you were supposed to patronize. But anyway, when he got his meal, he'd take off. Nobody knew where he went. He fraternized. Well, then they busted him.
I think I know what that means.
Anyway, he would be busted. Then the general would be coming along and says, why ain't that man got a rating? Well, I said to him, you give him his staff sergeant rating now. In other words, in 24 hours, he went from one to the other. Anyway, he showed me now your bulldozers and military, they had a very thick front end. And those louvers for your radiator, they were probably an inch or inch and a half thick. And they were not put like that. They cheated a little bit. Not so much air to go through, but otherwise the shell would hit that. Well, it glanced aside. It got hit in the corner of the blade. And of course that was heavy in this great big hole in the blade. But anyway, your military, the engineers played a big part in the Army. Well, the Navy too, because they all transported. stuff back and forth.
Had you been out of Kansas before you enlisted or were drafted?
Well, my folks would take a trip. We'd go to Colorado and different places. Fact is, 1930, we went to Canada. My mother had a sister up there in Saskatchewan. So we went up there, and of course things are different. Now, there's one thing in Canada, your roads, you got 640 acres in a quarter section. That's what you got. Then the government's got 90 foot of roadway, so that when you travel a mile, you travel a mile and 90 feet. Of course, theirs is all, but anyway, it was an enjoyable
There's
trip.
his metric.
So you weren't just a Kansas kid. You'd kind of done some traveling and things.
Well,
before you got out.
yeah, but all my work and anything I done was still Kansas.
Were you farming
Well, yes,
with your folks?
with Dad.
Yeah, yeah. So were you in good physical shape when you went into the Army?
Yeah.
I know you spoke about all the running that you had to do and the training and things.
Yeah.
And
Well, I had a softy job. I was a radio operator. That's wireless code. And of course, the radio was on a Jeep. And of course, I had my transportation. Now, according to this, I had a new Jeep to start with, 1,100 miles about from the time we left Utah Beach till we wound up in Czechoslovakia. Well, that was about 11 months because 44, June and 44 was the
landing at
landing, and at June the 6th, they blow the whistle on us. Well, there's a lot of different argument whether the 6th or the 9th. It took a long time to get the papers all signed and all that.
yeah, sure. That's why you talked about the Jeep when you made your landing, was that the Jeep was just shot right off the...
I was on a Limey LST, and they had 16 Jeeps and 1 3/4 ton. And why the odd one? And of course, our training was the first Jeep, when they left the line, went to the right, the second one to the left. The first one went straight off, I went straight off, they had no other place to go. And along the edge, there's guys that had been coming down of the big ships on the landing net, and of course they got wounded, and of course they had their pack.
So there was shooting going on at the time?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we call them floaters. They gradually like they dropped.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was so...
Was that the first time you got scared? Or had you been scared?
Well, here's the situation. When I landed, I had a tooth problem. They drilled every filling I had out and put on this soft stuff. And so then when they processed, I had big swell way up. And here they're
Abscess.
Huh?
Abscess.
Yeah. Anyway, they a guy, the only way he could do it just put his clamps on, break it off. That's gruesome. Anyway, then of course I was back the next day, and then they had to get a real doctor and surgery. Then I always said,
And that was all before the landing, right?
Yeah, that's
Immediately
right.
before.
We was getting ready, and we was already, our equipment for our landing was on a big boat and down in the hole, and of course that was all loaded the day before. And that night when they raised them up, See, in the Navy or any deal like that, everything was done with a rope. If a chain, it'd snap, but a rope would stretch. Anyway, when mine come up, I got on. I had to take off my full field pack because I'd caught getting up in the Jeep. I landed at 5:30. I looked at my watch in the afternoon, and we had to sit there 2 days waiting for things to get organized. And the first night.
And the shooting is going on around you all the while.
Yeah, well, you've got miles and miles of shoreline, and you've got those big ships, naval guns, and now you think they shoot it all at once. They do not. They got one, then so many minutes, two, and then they would start. That makes it sound like it's continuous. Well, you know when you're bouncing around, you're not perfect for landing. But anyway.
Because of the shooting, the ship was bouncing.
Oh, well, sure.
Yeah.
And the water.
Yeah. And then
And the water.
I'd never seen these big balloons up in the air. My gosh, 300-foot cable. Now what was that? That was to keep the airplanes from strafing.
Our planes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the airplanes, that kept them higher.
Oh,
Yeah.
Kept them
okay.
away.
Yeah.
They didn't want to run
Okay.
into the balloons.
I see.
Yeah.
It almost like it marked where you were and here's the target.
Well,
but
they
no.
They knew where each other was.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. So 2 days you kind of just dug in, got your equipment ready to go.
you know, in Camp Barkley, Texas, they you had to dig a foxhole, of course, and that was rocky ground, and boy, you'd chew around. And this Jeep had a keen cutter dirt shovel, and that ground over there just get it in. And so our and then it had a plumb axe. That was considered a good axe. Well, if they wanted to hit a piece of iron with it, they just grabbed your axe. But I can't tell you that this Jeep, all Jeeps, had these dual traction tires, 6-ply. They were bias tires, and you go this way or that way. Well, if you had a flat tire or it lost there, you'd never know it because they were so hard. And the ordinance got kind of rough with service company. They wanted the service company to fix some of those tires. Well, they didn't have nothing to fix, only a screwdriver that long. And so what they done, they just throwed a bunch of them wheels down, taken one of those big trucks and run over them. That took care of it.
Break them loose.
But just think, an operation like that, how much gasoline it took. And that gasoline was hauled from the, well, you see, the ships come into the point of the Sherbrooke Peninsula, and they had big yards where they loaded their, filled those cans, 5 gallons. Now, why they didn't catch a fire, you know, there's guys that be careless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It came in 5-gallon cans.
Yeah, these cans, they're screwed.
Jerry cans.
Yeah, we use them in this country a lot.
Yeah.
And then we got a lot of German cans. They were not screwed. They were
Lever lock on them.
just a lid.
Yeah.
But we've still using 2 of those cans.
Yeah. They're around.
They're good cans.
Yeah.
And of course down that spout, there's a
Filter.
a screen, and that would separate the water from the gasoline.
that
How
was a
many
problem.
men were in your charge that were working with the radio that could have
Well,
taken over if something happened to you, for
We was
example?
in headquarters company. There were 17 that had charge of the communications. Now, communication means wire, radio, and message runner. And there were 17. Of course, that all baited down. We had a captain. He was the head of the whole thing. Then you had a master sergeant. He was the next one in line. When we went to training, he was a staff sergeant. He was the cadre for the outfit. And then the next one was on down was the tech sergeant. Well, that means 3 above and 2 below. Then the next was a lot of T4s. We had, every man had a rating, a T4 or T5. That was the best job you had. You had a little rating, and you didn't have anybody to boss around, only your 2 guys on the radio. And of course, you had to see, we was under 24 hours and take turns. Well, this one guy, he was from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Andy Anderson was his name. And he wanted to write letters to his wife. And so he wanted the shifts from 8 on till you got your these letters done. And of course, just tap you on the shoulder, you got out of bed. And, I mean, you slept in the foxhole, but then you could go to sleep instantly and you could
Wake up instantly.
wake up. Now today, takes me half an hour to get woke up.
Where was your position as the fighting was going on? Did you
Oh.
have to be at the front line pretty much?
Here's the way that worked. You've got your front line, which is letter companies. Then you got your battalion. And all right, then your battalion, there's headquarters company. In other words, the way you would put it out on paper, your headquarters company were between the front line and the artillery. And artillery shot over your head. Of course, if you made a mistake, it landed on you. Of course, now, well, we better wait.
You want?
I got a couple questions for you.
Oh,
And the first one is, if a man is discharged out of the Army under Section 8, does he get any benefits?
Is Section 8
Yeah.
dishonorable?
Yeah.
He does not.
Well, that's what I wondered. Now, this one guy, he was under Section 8. Now, that should have been the draft board. But they'd be having their classes. And this, well, Oscar Saps, he'd go up like that. Lieutenant, sir, he was courteous that way. But he said, it'd be easier to do it this way or that way. And that don't work in the Army. And the next one is, if a man commits suicide, does this family get any benefits?
That I don't know the answer. I have a question for you.
All right?
How much money did you make while this was going on?
What?
How much money did you make?
Well,
Do you remember?
when I went in the Army, I made $21 a day once a month.
Okay.
And then time we got to combat, I was getting $100, but I had to take out, they made me believe you had to take out a bond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
bond.
You had to pay for what you were doing.
Yeah. And then, of course, we drew extra with $10 a month combat
Yeah.
badge. Now, this article they had that this Roper, he was in another division, but the French give them $17 a month. So, and we were furnished a carton of cigarettes a week. We didn't pay for that or nothing.
Did you smoke yours or give them away or trade them?
About everything. Well, we got along, and I had Lucky Strike Green cigarettes and Gold Bond, all of them modern ones. And so this guy was going to Paris on the path, so I said, I'll take $80 for the 20 cartons. So he picked them up. Don't ask me what he got, but.
You didn't get to go to Paris then?
No, I didn't. No, that Paris deal, certain people got to go, and all right, you went in a Class A uniform.
Mm-hmm.
Well, our boots, you didn't shine them. There's that rough deal.
Yeah.
And you had a new pair of boots and new, but you didn't have no coat. You had a field jacket. And when our boys would go to Paris, buy goddamn peas and load them up, bring them right back. They were in proper uniform.
They didn't have a Class A.
Why? And they just wore the helmet liner. And so anyway, our colonel went out there, that is our regimental commander. He started asking questions. He says, you come down and I'll show you what Class A uniform is. Yeah. There's a lot of them deals, the big shots, that never heard a gun go off, they'd pass the deal. And it's, well, it is worse than a couple of little kids are playing.
Sometimes, yeah.
This group's fighting the other one. Well, actually, Benjamin, you got a Benjamin.
South of Waterville.
Yeah, and then that's Leon. And Leon's dad was one of 8 brothers. And there's another one down here at Frankfurt, but there was 4 brothers of the American Army and 4 of them in the German Army at the same time, shooting at brothers.
With a name like Benjamin, yeah.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
Well, I tell you, all war is a game. Now, I read in the Legion magazine, they had a big powwow, the big shots were, and they decided that we couldn't have World War III because there wasn't enough money in it. What does our world operate on? Money.
So let's go back to Utah Beach when you landed, and you had a pack. What did you have in your, what did you call it?
That had your tent, and your extra pair of pants, your socks, your razor, and all that stuff. Yeah, that is if you want to carry one. And anyway, that was your, and then you had your field, not a blanket. You had one blanket in there. Oh, those. Well, they use them here, a mattress that you crawl into.
Oh, a sleeping bag.
Yeah, sleeping bag.
Okay.
Yeah, but
I couldn't come up
it
with it.
didn't weigh 2 pounds, but it was pretty good stuff. And you didn't blow air in the ones with officers. Theirs was good enough; they blowed air in.
Yeah.
But well,
Did you have a weapon?
Oh yeah, not a P, a
P-30, a pistol.
Grand.
A rifle?
A regular rifle.
An was it an M1? No, that was World War II.
Was it M1?
M1?
I can't think right
That's
now.
World War II.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
M1. Anyway.
Bolt action?
No.
Automatic?
Semi-automatic.
Semi-automatic, yeah.
Grand, they call them.
Yeah, and
And
I'm not coming up with it either, Orville. I know I've seen them and I know what you're talking about.
yeah. Now,
Bang, bang, bang.
they
bang.
were gas operated on their own. And of course they kick out. Now, we have had a practice for targets and all that with these. What did we fight with? The Germans had burp guns and we had Tommy guns.
Yeah.
In other words, you showed a lot of lead. And,
Hope it hit something.
well, there's guys went through the mirages, never got a scratch.
Yeah.
There's some guys that got pretty well chewed up.
How often did you shoot?
Huh?
How often did you actually shoot your rifle?
Well, actually, not very much. You was at your post as our radio operator, and once in a while. But what is one shot about to when you got 1,000 of them shooting at you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just had your head down and you were taking care of business most of the time.
Well, yeah. Well, you see, this is a code. Morse code is what our radio is operated on. In other words, diddy-do, dum-dee-do, and all that. VA is diddy-da-da-da. And we had this book of the Q signals. Then when we got to England, they made first the Z signals. Then we went to the Q signals. And we had to learn all that all over again. And
Was that a way to mix up the code?
well, that shortens it. In other words, VA means that you're finished. And QFA, quit fooling around. I seen Semacore run between two ships, but that's pretty slow. That's the flags.
In the Navy we called it wigwag.
Yeah.
Didn't have carrier pigeons.
In this history book, I seen a picture where they used a pigeon.
But not your company.
Well, no,
No.
You see that pigeon? That was another group by themselves, of course. They were small, but in pigeons, you don't take them up there, keep them around for 3 or 4 days. You take them up, you got to get rid of that. They got to go out so many hours, so they'll go back to where they're supposed to. It's
not too reliable.
Huh?
Not very reliable, probably.
Well, they could get through. Some of them never made it, of course, but now, I'd never seen a dog run around over there.
Really?
And I'd never seen a cat. Whether they ate them, of course the dog would give away your positions, you know. So.
Huh.
And in the villages that you went through, there weren't any loose animals.
Oh no. If you get your map out, this World War II was fought on the eastern edge of Europe. Eurasia is a big area. And you got all those countries. Switzerland, you heard the stories about them. They got their, where they graze the cattle, go on up as the grass gets greener and all of that. But why Germany never went in and got Switzerland, I can't tell you. No, they didn't bother. In other words, we're down to this road. This is the eastern edge of Germany, about 60, 80 foot wide the road was. The other side was Switzerland. all right. The Germans didn't go over there, and they
Swiss.
The Allied didn't either.
yeah, that's right. And now they had all the vendors out, though, on these highways, and so you pick up they loved American money. Of course, we had the money that the country that we were in.
Yeah.
We had German francs, but we paid them off. I got a watch over there, and it was for $11, and bought it from a vendor. When we got home to New York, we walked down to a little jewelry store. $53.
Do you still have that?
No,
No.
that watch, it was what do you call it? A weight operated.
Yeah, a self-winding.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
I had one of those.
And I had this watch, and I come home, and of course, I didn't know too much about it, but my dad took his watches up to Ackerman at Marysville. All right, so I took it. He opened it up. He said, "I can't do you any good." Of course, I knew him. Well, the only thing I had in my head was getting an engagement ring. And so he showed me $100, but if I bought the pair, I guess for $110, the wedding and the engagement. So how to get the measurements? So I would take her class ring. That was the start. Then after we got the class ring, and he got it made, then we went up again, he'd check it out. And of course, today, my fingers, they wouldn't support a ring because,
Yeah.
well, the last time I wore a wedding ring is, I was out in the farm. I was married, of course, already. And I was coming down the side of the corn crib, and I hooked the thing behind the nail. Didn't lose my finger, but I sure, that's the last time I wore a wedding ring. Well, before she died, she thought I should have one. But we just never got around to get one. She died. She's 59 years old when she died.
Oh.
She died of cancer.
Were you going with her before you went into the service?
Well, I would say I knew her.
Uh,
And, of course,
you had your eye on her, kind of.
well, I guess, anyway, she had a brother in the Army and another one that had married a girl and they was farming down there. And anyway, I come home the 25th day of October. And she didn't tell me what was cooking. I called up, I went down there. Of course, her mother had to come up and stay with the kids because the sister-in-law, she was in the hospital getting ready for a new one, the 27th. They got twins. And of course, I didn't know nothing about that. And of course, my wife, she was probably 26 years old. She'd taken care of, they get her to help with taking care of babies and stuff. And she knew more about it. And well, she'd go different places, and they'd bring out the thermometer to check the water and all. She used this elbow. That's the way she checked the water.
Yeah.
And
What was her maiden name?
Catherine Clucky.
Clucky?
Yeah. Well, she was so really. Oh, what was that Clucky that lived in Waterville? Carpenter?
Emma? No.
No.
Reverend Clocky?
Yeah, Reverend, it'd be Reverend. But what was his first name?
Reverend was all I think
Well,
I
there
ever
were
knew.
three of us.
He had two wives.
Yeah, and then he had him, Martin, and
And there was another one.
there was 3 of those boys.
Yeah.
And of course, the mother died, and that's where Elmer, George, and a girl come in. She was in Nebraska, and so this not Martin. Anyway, this Clucky, he was the oldest, and him and I went around together to the funerals down there, and so he.
Was his wife, his first wife, Emma?
I can't tell you that.
Okay. You ran around with him as a young man.
Well, he was older than I was,
Okay.
but this Robert Clucky, if they finally talked him going before the Board of Examiners, come in, and that's my daughter-in-law.
I know her. Here, Will, give us a break here.
All of this stuff.
Yeah, I know. Really, all we're trying to collect is the Blue Rapids history, and you're just a little extra on top of that because you're not truly Blue Rapids. But I'm interested in your Clucky relationship because my mother and the first Mrs. Clucky were friends growing up in Cleburne. And so
that'd be about right.
my mom knew Mrs. Clucky for a long time, and she and my dad were friends with Reverend Clucky and his wife. And so that's why I was interested. So you said that your wife was a Clucky.
Well, it goes a little further back. If you were a Wooler, you were related to everybody. Because the Woolers and the Cluckies. Now, did you ever hear of, did you know Viola Pickett?
I heard the Pickett family name.
All right. She, her dad was in World War I, and he was gassed. And so...
They lived in Cleburne, right?
Well, yeah. Anyway, he was gassed. And the government got him over it. He come home and he married, and he had 3 kids. This Vi is one of them, and then the 2 other girls and boy. And anyway, they lived down pretty close to Clay Center. It wasn't Clay Center, but one of those little towns. But anyway, he was so good. He'd talk at funerals, but he couldn't preach because he wasn't ordained. So he went before the board, that'd be, I suppose, the Methodist or EUB, whatever group, it don't make any. Anyway, he do more than the board.
Well, my mother thought the world of him. She just thought he was
Yeah.
a grand gentleman. So.
See, it ain't Lester.
Yes, it is.
It is?
Yes, it is. Good job.
That's
His
good.
memory's way better than mine. Yeah.
Oh, this,
Yeah. He used to come see the folks, and they exchanged Christmas cards every year, forever.
now this, there was a girl.
But now, wait a minute. How was Lester Clucky related to your wife?
Well, all right. Lester Clucky's father and grandfather, other Clucky, they were brothers.
Okay. So she and Lester were cousins.
Yeah.
Okay. Huh.
Well, see, Earl Clucky, he lost his wife out in California. That'd be August's son, my brother-in-law. And so she died, and of course the highway wanted to go through. He had a nice house and everything, but they offered him so much a square foot. And he got a big amount of money, and it was all fixed, so it wasn't paid so much, it wasn't taxed. So he went to come back to Kansas, and he went down to stay with Cleo Wooler. Cleo Wooler, I don't know what her name, but that was Herbert Wooler's, and he belonged to the Clucky family, you see. And so anyway, when the time come, he decided they better get married. They're a month or two together. So he went down. And, well, his grandmother was a wooler, and his mother was a wooler. Now, how could he get married? Well, Earl says, if you got about 2 hours time, we'll go ahead and I'll show you.
They worked it out.
Here's our insignia. And this here's a Bronze Star Meritorious Service. That was 4 campaigns. But it got 5, they had, that's what you call a tainted Silver Star. See, a Silver Star, that's altogether different, this tainted. So they had to squeeze that in there, and that's how that is. But this division strength was probably 18 to 22,000 people. And you got 100 division, look how many men you got prowling around. You done with it?
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Do you want to talk about fear and really being scared and what it was that was
Well,
going on at the time?
Things happen so fast you didn't have very long to think about
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And did it help that you had to be communicating, you had to do your job?
Well,
it kept you from thinking about what was going on?
This radio they had wasn't as whippy-do as it should be. Static. They had these jammers. And, of course, you take your messages on. In other words, you had one on the adjustment, one on the pencil. That's the way you took your message. Now, your Godfrey up here at Waterville, he was a railroad man,
Milford.
and he depot man, and he was in intelligence. He said the Germans, you send a message, they could run it through their scambler before you delivered it to message center. They had the answer already.
Oh.
Now, there's a lot of tricks in that. Was that a true answer, or was that a fictitious deal? Well, you know good. Well, we had a real good electrician from the radio section, and he went and got stole a radio out of a wrecked Volkswagen, and so now that was 12-volt. Jeep was on 6-volt. So you put a converter in there, and we had this 6-volt converted to 12, and we had that radio. That was on 24 hours a day, real low. When we were in the Battle of the Bulge, we were on the south flank, and we pulled out of there, and we was going down towards Luxembourg. Now, the one history book says 100-mile creek, but the history book says 50. Don't make any difference. We left there, and they turned the thing. Of course, the antenna was off, but Axis Sally told us what we were doing and where we were going. We didn't know ourselves.
Axis Sally, was she the
She's
German?
German, yeah. Tokyo Rose was Japanese, and ours is BBC, England.
And you heard that on the radio
Oh, yeah,
that the guy
yeah.
German
transformed
Well,
him for you.
You see, the radio would run 24 hours a day, and at the top of the hour, they always give the important news. You wouldn't believe any of them, even our own. Now, I see where Tokyo Rose and Axis Sally, they were put to death finally for a war criminal. And the gal that run BBC, she's indicted for some of that. So, in other words,
No freedom of speech. Propaganda gets you in trouble.
Well,
And who you gonna believe?
you don't even believe yourself half the time.
No. So when you would send messages and they would either be secret or top secret,
Yeah.
did you send them in a different manner?
No. See,
They were just labeled
yeah,
as they
that's
went
right.
out.
But you had to take that message after you received it, would go to message center. That took 5 minutes to get there. Then it took another 5 minutes to run through the scrambler. And then they got the message. Now,
So you did not know what the messages said that
no,
came in.
no.
He just wrote down the code.
Yeah.
But your message was all set up. You wrote it, they took it as you wrote it. If you made a mistake, in other words, an H was 3 discs, or 4 discs, and an S was 3, and you couldn't change it as a message center man. The man that received it, he'd do his own changing. There's a division man, we had a little problem, and he wanted to know how the procedure was. I told him, well, it took 5 minutes to write it, 5 minutes to deliver it, 5 minutes to send it. He finally looked at me and he says, the war would be over with by the time you got that across, which was true. Now, well, you don't know how things operated because there are all kinds of radios. We had a 199, you go up to ultra high frequency. We were in communications, Washington, D.C. And of course, all we got there was a time. At the top of the hour, gong will be, the gong will be the top of the hour the next, and your top of the hour, they put the gong. They wasn't satisfied, they'd taken that out and put it in NORAD in Colorado, and that isn't correct now. They moved it Fort Collins, some of the recording. They got, what difference does a sucket mean? But that's the way the world operates.
Not if it takes 5 minutes to write the message down and 5 minutes to deliver it. Then 1 second probably doesn't matter, yeah.
Did you want to touch Indian, John?
Well,
No.
they, big wheels, they'd ask us for time. Of course, they picked it up themselves. They kept things within a minute or two.
Sure. I was surprised that you got mail as regularly as you did. That was good.
Our mail was real good. Of course, APO 90. Now, this buddy of mine, he wrote his wife every night.
Yeah.
And he put a 6-cent airmail stamp on it. You get to go faster. I never did to waste my money, just free. So anyway, he wrote 2 letters, done in 2 weeks apart, and the one he put the 6-cent stamp on, it took him 2 weeks longer to get the letter. Well, now my folks said they never did have any cut out, but all right, you start your letter somewhere in Europe. That's the way you'd go.
Yeah.
If you said France or Luxembourg or something, that was all cut out.
Yeah. So you learned how to write your letter without, so they didn't have to keep
what
cutting
could
it
you
out.
write? You couldn't say nothing.
Yeah.
Same old stuff. Then at the end, you had a bunch of exes.
Love and kisses.
Yeah.
Do
Well,
you have any of your letters?
Huh?
Do you have any of your letters?
my wife, the letters I wrote my wife was, she had them. And when we moved either out of the farm or to Waterville, they were in there, but we cannot find them.
Yeah. Yeah. You probably wrote things you didn't want anybody else to read anyway.
Well, You couldn't say anything.
Well, now,
either.
were you writing to her during during the war? You were writing to your wife?
I wrote to
Writing to,
she wasn't
was
a
a
wife.
girlfriend.
Yeah.
She was
Yeah.
a girlfriend.
Yeah.
I'd write 2 letters, one to my mom and
One to her?
Yeah. Of course, there right after the beginning of the war, I could send stuff home. And I wrapped up a German army rifle. That was a Grand German army rifle, and Italian. It's a CEL or whatever it is. Wrapped them together and it come under the 50 pound. And the hammer, the firing pins were still in the gun. And I wrapped them up and mailed them. They went through. A little later on, you couldn't send anything with a fire pin. You had to throw them away. Well, what good is a gun if you take your firing pins away from it? But anyway, I sent oodles and gobs of radio equipment stuff home, but things that I didn't know what they were. I had one piece of machinery, or a little tester, that was to tell you what a brake was, how far it was. And so Smitty was the telephone man there in Waterville, so he took it to Pika, and they said, that might be the right piece, but there's a lot more that goes with it. And now we had
Why were you sending that stuff home?
Huh?
Why were you sending that stuff home? Why did you send those pieces of equipment home?
Souvenirs, because we could do it free.
Oh,
Yeah, that was free.
And
okay.
then
53 is where
see,
you're
the Germans, they did, see, we had these ever-ready flashlights, just the same as you get today at your stores.
Yeah.
2 railback batteries, and we had those. We wasted every night. The radio section had to take those batteries and throw them away. We buried those batteries 24 in a box, box after box. They'd send you, ooh, you could use it, you couldn't carry it.
Yeah.
Ah,
Wait, it's pitiful.
Every day you threw them away?
Huh?
Every day?
Well, every day, I think it come once a week.
Yeah.
Whole load. And of course the switchboard, that was operated under 6 these ours was railback. Of course, everything was GI color.
Yeah.
And so we would the switchboard run. Then they had boosters. That was all run with flashlight battery. It's all standard. Well, they got to using too many, and they didn't have enough boosters. So now, when I had some food, these little canisters of food, and so they never buzzed or nothing. I had grandkids coming up. Well, you know, they like to snoop around. You had the little openers there, and they just open them up. So I decided I'd open them up. I didn't want them to get a hold of it. I opened them up. It smelled all right, but I didn't have a nerve enough to taste it. and now your breakfast, ham and eggs were your basis. But on your noon and evening meal, it was rice was a carrier, and then of course beef or pork. I can't remember.
Spam?
Huh?
Did you have spam?
No, we didn't get any
No.
spam. And a lot of people said that's all they got was spam.
Well, that's what I'd heard too, that there was a
Yeah.
lot of spam.
No, we never got any spam. Anyway, it was well, I was dumb. I got a lot of education. And I left a lot of education stuff. I didn't know that Europe was built the way it was. Now, in the pictures you see of all the fussy buildings in Switzerland and Germany and all, now these places where we were in the eastern part, and that's where they aimed for the wars to be fought. Now, when we started out, we were not to touch a church. All right, we went along, and by golly, that's where the spies out.
Right.
So, boom,
Touch the
blew
church.
the tops off. All right, then your Geneva Conference, and that is controlled by the Pope. They made an agreement. We never saw no more churches for a while.
I read that part. What was it like coming home? Did you get a hero's welcome when your ship came in? You came to New York. Is that where you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We-
Were there people there to celebrate, to welcome you home?
Now everybody thinks your ship just goes right up to your parking place.
No.
It does not. It parks way out, and now we landed in New York about 4 o'clock, give or take, and so we were parked out there, and then about dusk, across the channel, a big ship lit up, lights. Kate Smith sang "God Bless America." There was some guy. Well, Kate Smith can't be all these places. I said I didn't give a damn whether she was standing. It was still "God Bless America."
Too bad.
Now, I never was up to the Statue of Liberty, but that thing must be big. Of course, you see that from miles away. Now, when we went into the up the Hudson River and under the George Washington Bridge to park, we went till we rammed the ground. We got out, we went up. That's where we got to touch the soil of the United States of America. Anyway, that ship had to wait till 8 or 7 o'clock the next morning. The tide had come in, they could float it out.
4 minutes.
There's a lot to these ships.
Yes.
And listen,
The people in Kansas don't know.
well, you take that harbor of London. Well, I'd hate to guess how it's several hundred miles long, and they got parking places. Of course, in England, they didn't have the shifting of the dirt. And here, in the border of the United States, a lot of our bottles are shifted all the time.
None of your family was in New York to see you. You had to just
No.
come home on the train.
When I come home, I got to Leavenworth. Well, when we left New York, they took us, about 30 of us, in a club car, and we went up, we parked at the yards of Chicago. We parked there. They'd bring us food, sack lunch 3 times a day, and then a pot of coffee, and you didn't dump it, she still didn't move. You'd be surprised how much garbage from
30 people?
yeah, and of course that latrine stuff and all.
Yeah.
And so we started out then down between New York.
Were you under quarantine, or did they do that because the transportation system was messed up?
Somebody goofed up.
Yeah, okay.
They forgot
okay.
they were there.
Now you're that was years ago. It was 34 already. They had 2 lines from Chicago to Kansas City, and one going and one coming. The only thing is the trains are just opposite. They go on the left hand instead of the right hand, and then in the center is the locals. And anyway, we got to Leavenworth. They didn't have no place for. They had brand new barracks, but they didn't have nothing to do. And finally, we horsed around there for. We had to go here and there. We didn't take a bath because all we had to do was sleep on our bedroll. And so they finally got a bunch of trucks and they loaded us up to Fort Leonard Wood. So we went down there, and that's where they fired us. And my teeth they'd goofed up so bad, and you had any complaints, you'd ask. Well, it'd probably take 3 months for you to get to you. Well, you wasn't interested in 3 months.
Have
You
to
was
stay
going
in
home.
another 3 months.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got to Kansas. Then we went up to St. Joe. That's where we picked up the branch that would come here through Waterville.
Central Branch.
Yeah, they Missouri Pacific.
Mhm.
And I got to Barnes at about a quarter till 7. And of course, Mike Wishy was open. He'd run the cafe. Of course, he'd lost a son in the Japanese deal. So I went in there. He's crabby as hell.